What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Deverout YouTube channel. We are back in the fantasy realm. So we've been going on with a bunch of college football stuff here on the channel, getting ready for that. But we want to dive into some fantasy football stuff, especially because redraft is coming up. So what we're going to be doing here on the channel today, we're going to be doing the redraft mock draft. So what I'm going to do is be going through 12 rounds with you guys of a bunch of expert fantasy analysts and just, fantasy fans diving into what the first 12 rounds look like. We're going to go over values, player values, best picks in those rounds, but also I'm going to give you guys like who's still on the board, who are some late round targets that you can target, and we're going to go diving into particular team builds. So we have it all on this episode here for this. So if you're playing fantasy football, if you still have a redraft mock draft coming up or a redraft draft coming up, stay on the channel, hit that like and subscribe button while the intro is going, and we will dive into it on the other side. All right, let's get into it. First redraft mock draft here on the channel this year. And we got our boy Javonte Williams on there because he's a revelation right now. But let's dive into it. So, like I said, we're going to be going through rounds 1 through 3 and all the way through 12 to kind of dive into it. So, first ones, let's talk about what we've seen. So, pretty much we're seeing Chase and Jefferson go 101, 102. That's pretty chalk there. You have McCaffrey. I went Eckler there. Kupp, Kelsey, Hill, Bijan going at the 108, Barkley at the 109. Brown, Diggs, Brown, and in Lamb. That's kind of how the first and second round plays out. When you go through here, my favorite pick of this draft on this in this particular set was Garrett Wilson. I think at the 205 is pretty good value. I think I'd rather have Garrett Wilson over Adams in terms of what this offense can be and what his target share is going to be. So I like Garrett Wilson there in the middle of second. I think pairing him with a top running back is the way to go, because if you can get a Bijan Robinson who might be a top 5 guy, and I even said at our Patreon today, I said, you know what, there might be a in non-PPR. So this is a PPR mock draft, but in non-PPR, Robinson might be a top 3 pick, right? Realistically, we're talking that. So if you compare him to Wilson, that's kind of ideal, right? So this one quarterback PPR mock that we're doing here, still like him going to the 205 in that second round. Now, when you go through here, I like Mark Andrews in the second as well. You have Josh Jacobs there. You have Waddle. Waddle's consistently going around Wilson. Then you have Henry, Pollard, Stevenson, Olave. Rounded out in the third, Smith, you have Hurts there, and you see how he's a QB2 off the board. Mahomes was the QB1 at the 203, and you're going to kind of go through here. Now, I will say the best value pick with risk is Jonathan Taylor, right? Like what he can be in that offense. I really feel like Taylor's not going to miss a ton of time because he's in a no-win situation. The offense needs him. He doesn't have any leverage, and I think he's going to come back. Now, if you can get Taylor, so like you see there, you have Robinson already and Wilson. You can afford to have Taylor maybe miss a few games, and if you get Taylor back at full speed with Robinson and Wilson down the stretch, I mean, that's a legitimate roster, right? We'll look at how his team build played out, but I don't hate taking Jonathan Taylor there in the third as someone who is probably going late first, early second, before the holdout and all the controversy there. So, I don't mind that pick. I think that's a pretty good value pick there. You'll see Keenan Allen there at the 310, Lamar, and Ridley. And I think the biggest thing is to notice the running backs, right? The running backs drive pretty quickly. You're going to see wide receivers go off the board, but those first 4 picks are pretty close to as chalk as you can, with sometimes Kelsey diving in there. And that's something just to kind of know. Now, when we look at rounds 4 through 6, let's take a look at that and see how they're playing out. You got Dobbins and Walker, Etienne, and Jones, right? So you're looking at Walker and Etienne in this 4th round. Then you have Cooper, Hawkinson, Brees, DJ Moore, Joe Mixon, Debo, Fields, Hopkins, and Dobbins. Then you have Pitts, Kamara, Watson, Judy. And as you go through here, you're going to notice that, this is the money rounds. These are rounds where you can really kind of get some value. These are also rounds where you're waiting on that quarterback, right? You don't have to pay up to get one of the first 3 rounds. If you're going to look for this, there's really a clear tier break, though, after Lawrence. We'll talk about that tier break when we do the overall outlook, but that's where I like Fields here. Fields at the 410 feels like a really safe play. I think that with his rushing upside and what he did last year, he could be a top 5 guy. And if you get him in the 4th round, I don't think that's a terrible stretch. I also like Herbert and Lawrence, though, in the 5th round, right? So if you wanted to wait, the reason why we do this mock is just to see the value where it's at. I still think one of the best value picks, though, is Deontay Johnson, right? I still think Deontay being in that 6th round with what that offenses look like, with where his targets are going to go, by all accounts, he's healthy. I still think you can get a wide receiver, a low-end wide receiver 1, maybe mid wide receiver 2, but in the 6th round, right, at that wide receiver price, I don't mind that. I also like Christian Kirk there at the 609. So pretty good value there. You'll see those value running backs. that's where you start to see like Javonte. I almost put Javonte on there at 6'12". Like if Javonte's healthy, 6'12 is pretty good for that kind of a talent. Akers in there, Connor White, all of those that group of guys could be values, right? So this is just to show you guys kind of where that market's at. Hawkinson going before Pitts is something, Kittle, Waller's in there, Swift and Pierce and Kamara is kind of that value. Kamara was a value before he caught within suspension and people know how long he was gone. He was going like the 8th, 9th round. Now he's creeping up into that 5th round. But these are the two guys that really stood out to me in this round. When you look at round 7 through 9, overall, what you're going to start seeing here is this is where you're looking for upside ceiling, right? And you're going to take a little bit of risk here. And that's why I have these two guys on the board. You'll see Zay, Flowers, Marquise Brown, and Pickens, right? Then you have Cook and Sanders. And Cook's getting a little bit of bud. James Cook from Buffalo, Sanders as well, Dotson, and then Watson. So the best value for me is Watson. Watson in the 7th round, like there is value to be had at quarterback position in the 7th through 9th round. You'll see Dak and Aaron Rodgers in there. Watson has top 7 ability, right? And when he was fully healthy, ready to go, off the field stuff was not a concern in 2020. He was a top 5 quarterback. Now, can he bounce back? I wrote an entire spotlight on Deshaun Watson for Football Guys, and it was over 2,000 words, and it looks like he has that ability and that chance. And I know, like, in a preseason, they've talked about that offense being a little clunky, but the reason why is because they've really had to implement what Deshaun wanted. They've listened to him in terms of quarterback runs, all these other things. I still think he's a value there. And in my favorite pick is Elijah Moore, because if I'm high on Watson, I'm going to be higher on Moore than most people. And Moore is getting drafted in the 9th round. And for a guy that it could be the wide receiver 2 in an offense that I really want to be a part of, right? Especially if Chubb was to go down and nobody there, I think they're going to throw it more than people think. I think they're going to be a top 10 passing offense in the league. They're going to have Amari Cooper, but they're going to need Elijah Moore. And I think Elijah Moore is more talented than Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think he can assume that wide receiver 2 role. And then, hey, if Cooper goes down, then you still have more there, right? Then you're going through here some of these rookies that you're going to see. Kincaid, Achane, right? Those guys in there. Treylon Burks is an interesting one, but he's injured now, right? Always injured in that 9th round. That's the case. Then you're going to start seeing some of those, like, those backup running backs, Perrine, Roshan Johnson in the 9th. I like Khalil Herbert in the 7th. I'm going to be talking to him about him on another episode where we're talking about dynasty trade targets, but I did do an article series on Chicago. Herbert in the 7th is not a bad, just, zero running back build type of guy. Like, I like his ADP at that level. He can be that, solid running back too, and kind of get back that value where he's going. That's not a bad pick as well. Now, when you dive it into rounds 10 through 12, let's take a look at this. You're going to have, Gabriel Davis is in there. Tua's in there. So these are the quarterbacks, right? So these are that late round quarterbacks that everybody loves. So let's go through Tua, Richardson, Kirk Cousins, Kyler Murray, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, and Jared Goff. To me, my favorite pick was Daniel Jones just because of where the value is, right? I took Anthony Richardson in the 10th, full disclosure. We'll talk about that. But Daniel Jones in the 12th, I mean, he has really good upside with his rushing ability in that offense. He's looked pretty good. I don't mind waiting. So if you want to wait for a quarterback, just know that you can still get guys like Daniel and Geno and Jared Goff in the 12th round, and possibly Kirk Cousins in the 11th, right? So when you're thinking of like, hey, do I want to wait? How's my team going to be built? You don't necessarily have to get one of those top quarterbacks in the first 3 rounds. And I will say, as the mocks that I've done in this, and I've done a couple of redraft leagues already, I don't necessarily like the way the team builds when you take those top quarterbacks. It just feels like you leave a lot of value out there in terms of the running back and wide receiver position. The best value pick for me was Jaylen Warren, and I'm not as high on Jaylen Warren as, fantasy Twitter thinks Jaylen Warren's the next Walter Payton. But I do like where they got him, right? 12th round here. He can assume some of those running back duties. I still think Najee's the guy, 60-40, 70-30 split. But if Najee was to go down, Warren could be that running back 1. At the 12th round, that's a pick you'd make, right? I think that's a pretty good value play in those areas. Like McKinnon and Zeke are out there, yes. Kendra Miller is out there, Gainwell, Algier. I like Warren out of those guys in those 2 rounds right there in the 11th and the 12th. Now, still on the board to kind of give you an idea, quarterbacks that if you want to keep waiting, Russell Wilson's still there. Brock Purdy is still not getting drafted in the first 12 rounds. Matthew Stafford, Derek Carr, and Jordan Love. So again, if you still wanted to rate on quarterback and you believe in Brock Purdy in that offense or Russell Wilson, there's still options after the 12th round. Running backs, Devin Singletary, Raheem Mostert, Deonta Foreman, Deuce Vaughn, Chase Brown. So the running backs dry up a little bit. So just to know, obviously in single quarterback, those running backs aren't going to be there as much. I do like Singletary. Mostert could be there. Trying to figure out that Miami Dolphins backfield is going to be the mystery of all mysteries. And whoever figures it out is probably going to win a league. But they're going to be there. It's hard to kind of go out there. And then Deuce Vaughn's getting a little bit buzz right now. I'd be worried about that a little bit. I don't necessarily think I would draft him right now, but there is that. And there's talk that Chase Brown is the running back too in Cincinnati. So those guys can be values after that 12th. Wide receivers, you got Tyler Boyd, Rashee Rice, Rondale Moore, Jonathan Mingo, DJ Chark. And really it's just crapshoots, right? You're just trying to, shoot some dice and see if one of these guys hits. To me, I like Rashee. I think he's going to be good, but he's more of a 24 play. Do I want any part of the Cardinals offense? I don't know. Tyler Boyd really cap ceiling without any injuries in front of him. I do like DJ Chark, though. DJ Chark is someone I think can step up, but the Carolina offensive line is absolute ass. Like, just to be completely frank, they have not looked good. They could be one of the worst pass blocking, offensive line in the NFL. And so that worries me a little bit when we're looking at the potential ceiling for those guys. And in tight ends, Dawson Knox, Sam Laporta, Greg Dolchitz, Gerald Everett, Michael Mayer. All those guys are still tight ends on the board, and we'll kind of dive into that. Overall, my early takeaways in terms of from redrafts on August 20th, right? I know most people are going to do redrafts, drafts here in a couple of weeks, right before the season starts, usually, Labor Day weekend, everything there. Late round quarterbacks is still available, right? We talk about these high end quarterbacks, and they are still getting drafted now a little higher. Mahomes going to second round and so forth, but there's still value to be had in late round quarterbacks. That is still a strategy that you can use. Running back values. There are a ton of running back values. You can get running back ones, like maybe some ETNs and other Rays in like the fourth round, late third, early fourth. So there's running back values if you still want to go just build through wide receiver. And I do think there's tight end values, but I do think there's a cliff. So when we're talking about where that cliff is, let's look at it. So let's look at the overall board here, what I'm saying. So when you look in here, so look at the running back. Let's start with the running back take. So we already talked about the quarterbacks. You can see the value there. Running back wise, you're looking at like Najee Harris in the third, but then when you flip it around in the fourth, you can get Ken Walker, who, hasn't practiced because of the groin, everything there. So there's some question marks there. You can get ETN in the fourth round as your running back too. That's pretty good value, right? Breece Hall, I understand with Dalvin Cook there and everything that's happened, but you could get him in the fourth round, right? Joe Mixon, J.K. Dobbins, Kamara. There are guys in that third, fourth, and fifth round, and particularly the fourth and fifth round, that I don't mind being my running back twos. Now, if they're your running back one, I'm a little concerned, like the Mixon White team right there. I think there's some question marks there. There's a lot of risk, like anything. But if Mixon hits, you'd be pretty comfortable with that. As far as the tight ends goes, there's a big drop off after Kittle and Waller, in my opinion. Do you really want to reach for Dallas Goedert? How consistent can he be? Ingram with all the pass catchers there. Njoku feels like a reach. Freiermuth. I took Kincaid at 904. I did take Chig at 11. I probably wouldn't have done that had I don't know what I was thinking there, but Kincaid sitting at the 904. He could be a slot receiver, maybe the wide receiver too on Buffalo, right? He's more of a wide receiver than he is a tight end. So I could justify that pick there. But the tight end cliff is real. So like, when are you going to take one? I think is the key. If you don't get a Waller, right after Waller, you might just want to wait until like the 9th, 10th, 11th round and maybe take a shot on one of those guys. Dalton Schultz is another guy that's considered maybe the wide receiver one of the Texans in terms of just the number one target getter. That's something to look at when we kind of talk about these things. Now, I wanted to show you a few drafts, kind of a little bit different strategies there. For me, I had Eckler, Henry, and Gibbs. I wanted to go heavy running back early and see how it played out. Maybe I should have taken Tony Pollard instead of Henry or Ramondre. You guys let me know. I hate the Tennessee offensive line, so I'm kind of kicking myself there. But I do like getting Gibbs in the third round. I think Gibbs, I wrote a spotlight on him. I think him and Eckler and PPR are gold standard, because I think they can get a ton of PPR points and they have very safe floors. Then I went heavy wide receivers. Debo, which I don't love, but I really wanted DJ Moore. He didn't come back to me. But I got, Debo, Judy, and Kirk and Brown, I feel like are very, very safe floors because of the PPR aspect and just going to get targets. And if Debo can stay healthy, they're going to use him in that 21 personnel. They're going to use him in the backfield. So I'm okay with that. Then I took Charbonnet because if I'm not going to get Walker, I'll take Charbonnet in the 9th and 8th or 9th round. Kincaid. Then I took the swing with Richardson. And to me, my plan was to take Richardson in the 10th, and then after that, maybe not in the 12th or 13th, but the 14th or 15th round, grab another quarterback. If I can get like a Brock Purdy, if I can get a veteran guy like Russell Wilson or someone like that, just for my insurance in case Richardson's not playing out, I won't lose the draft because of him, but I could win it. And that's, I think, the guarantee that I had there. Then I want to go through a couple other ones I really liked. So this would be the opposite of mine, drafting 3 wide receivers, getting Walker, Herbert, and Roschon. I don't love the Herbert-Roschon kind of stack there. But I do like his first 5 picks, actually really 6 with Kittle. Like, that's a very good start. Brown, Lamb, Ridley, they could, some people are talking about Ridley being a low-end wide receiver 1, and Lamb and Brown can be that. We know that. Walker, if he's healthy, comes back as that running back 1. Pretty solid, right? Quentin Johnson, Gabriel Davis, he went after the high upside play. Got some risky picks in there. Don't love the Lawrence Murray. I don't know what was there, but that's just to show you kind of a different draft. And then I wanted to show you the first pick. You had Chase Olave and Smith. I like that. I like that start there. And there was a little risk in this, but this is the type of draft that wins or you get 12th place, right? Because you have Dobbins and Williams. And if they hit and Pitts, if those 3 guys hit along with those 3 wide receivers, you're in the money 100%. And then Addison can be that solid wide receiver 2 on the Vikings. Prescott, I love. I think he's severely undervalued with Gibson, Schultz, Sky Moore, and Elliott. I love this draft. This was my favorite draft, but there is risk. There is risk involved in this picks because if Dobbins, Pitts, and Williams don't play out, you're not going to be in the money. But I do enjoy that draft. I thought it was a lot of fun how we kind of built that and everything and above. So, hey, I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope that you guys enjoyed this mock. Stop it, pause it, see how everything plays out. We're going to be doing a couple more redraft mocks before you get out of here. We're going to do PPR. Let me know if you guys want standard or half PPR in the comments. If you'd like to see anything else, let me know about the mock. Who do you think had the best team? How do you feel like our team builds do? Do you still go heavy running back? Let me know in there. So we're going to be diving into fantasy as the college football season is going to be ramping up, kind of double dipping in both. We always appreciate you guys here on the channel. So I'll catch you guys on the next episode.